The iPhone 17 lineup might just be the most complicated lineup we've ever seen from Apple, and that's thanks to the new iPhone Air, along with the base iPhone 17 finally getting that 120Hz ProMotion display. So in this video, we're going to break down the key differences, some of which Apple didn't even mention, between the iPhone 17, the iPhone Air, the iPhone 17 Pro, and the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and I'll also help you understand and kind of try to figure out if you should upgrade from a previous iPhone or not. Okay, so let's start with the biggest surprise, and that is the fact that all of these iPhones have the same 120Hz ProMotion display with 3000 nits of peak brightness when outdoors. That's 1000 nits brighter than the 16 Pro Max. However, when you're watching videos, your experience might not be as good on one specific model, and that is the iPhone Air, because it only has one speaker. But we'll have to test that on the channel to see how much worse it actually is. But anyways, also a first this time is that all iPhones, not just the Pros, get the precision dual frequency GPS. So this is great for Find My and just for more accurate and reliable location tracking in general. So every year previously that was only a Pro exclusive. Now it's on the 17 and also on the iPhone Air. And the same can be said for the all new 18 megapixel center stage selfie camera, which can now shoot video from the front and the rear camera simultaneously with dual capture. And the sensor inside is now square, which allows it to switch from portrait to landscape without actually flipping the phone. And plus, it can dynamically zoom in and out to fit people in the frame when you're taking a selfie. So that's a big upgrade there. If you've been waiting on a front-facing camera upgrade, this is the year to upgrade if that's like a big deal to you, because it's a pretty substantial upgrade over previous years. And again, that's for all models. But that's about where these similarities across the board end, because there are quite a few differences beneath the surface that we need to discuss, because this can make or break your purchasing decision. So the iPhone Air is the only model with Apple's in-house C1X modem. So this is going to be more efficient, but it does not have millimeter wave for 5G. So if you are somebody who relies on that, you might want to look at the 17 or the 17 Pros, because they have the Qualcomm modem inside, which does get you a millimeter wave. So notice how I said more efficiency with that C1X modem. So let's talk about the battery life, because I think a lot of people going into this and even after the event are just thinking that the iPhone Air is going to be terrible for battery life, but I think those people are wrong. So Apple claims that this phone will get the same 27 hours of video playback as the iPhone 16 Pro. So the 16 Pro was my daily device last year. The iPhone Air is apparently going to have the same battery life. And if you buy the extra MagSafe battery pack for $100, you'll get a combined 40 hours of video playback. That is more than the iPhone 17 Pro Max, which has Apple's biggest battery ever. Meanwhile, the iPhone 17 has 30 hours of battery life. That is 8 hours more than the 16, that's pretty substantial. The 17 Pro gets 33 hours, that's 6 more than the 16 Pro, and then the 17 Pro Max gets 39 hours, that's 6 hours more than the 16 Pro Max. So very impressive battery numbers across the board this year. Now we should probably mention the display sizes of the iPhones this year, because it's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. So the iPhone 17, the base model, has been bumped up to 6.3 inches this year. So it's the same size now as the iPhone 17 Pro. Meanwhile, the iPhone Air is 6.5 inches and the 17 Pro Max is 6.9 inches. So yes, the display size is different, but there's also quite a difference in the overall build construction of these phones, because the iPhone Air is the only one with a titanium frame. Meanwhile, the iPhone 17 is the only one with an aluminum frame. And that's because the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max have an aluminum unibody design. And this unibody design on the Pro models this year is very interesting, because the way it was constructed, it allows for Apple to input a vapor chamber cooling system for the first time, along with the biggest battery ever put into an iPhone. So it is also thicker though than last year's Pros by a little bit. So if you're expecting it to be thinner, you're going to be disappointed. And the way this vapor chamber works is it basically takes deionized water that's sealed inside of the phone, and that's going to move the heat away from the chip inside to allow allow for about 40% higher sustained performance versus the 16 Pro. Now, you're not going to get the vapor chamber cooling on the Air or on the base 17. That is specifically for the Pro models. However, the iPhone Air will get something that the Pros have that the base model doesn't, and that is the ceramic shield on the back of the phone. And Apple claims that this ceramic shield back will give you 4 times more resistance to cracks when you drop your phone on its back. But at least for the front glass, all models have ceramic shield 2 for 3 times better scratch resistance, and they're all going to have an anti-reflective coating on that screen as well. But even with that ceramic shield 2 on the front and the all-new ceramic shield on the back to protect you more from drops, you're still probably going to crack your phone if you drop it enough, and that's why you need to have a case for your iPhone 17, and today's sponsor, TORRAS, has you covered. So you guys know, if you watch the channel, TORRAS has made some of my favorite iPhone cases for the past few years, and this year is no different with their iPhone 17 lineup. The O-Stand Q3 Air is probably my favorite because of its aesthetic design, with that little dot matrix anti-slip design on the sides, so it has good grip, along with the visible airbag corners on all 4 sides, which helps greatly with drop protection. But most importantly with these cases is that 360-degree magnetic stand on the back. So sure, this is great to fidget with. I just use it to fidget most of the time, or I just prop it up to watch videos while eating lunch. But where I find it even more useful is when out and about, because I can stick it to metal and it can act as kind of a makeshift tripod. Now, of course, that's not something you're always going to do, but it's at least nice to have. And it's going to last a long time as well, since it's rated for over 30,000 folds. And these buttons you see on the side are interchangeable. So if you want to swap out for a different color to kind of match your aesthetic, you can do that. And that second set of buttons comes in the box. But if you want a different look for your case, like say you like silicone cases, they do also have the nano-coated silicone version of this case, which also has a soft velvet interior. So if you want to pick up the great O-Stand Q3 Air or the Q3 silicone case, use my link down in the description below. Okay, so now we have to talk about the camera. So this is one of the main deciding factors when looking at any iPhone. So this year, it's pretty interesting because the iPhone Air has a single 48 megapixel fusion lens with a 2x optical zoom. Meanwhile, the iPhone 17 has a dual 48 megapixel camera lens with ultra wide as well. And then the 17 Pros both have the same camera setup. So we have the camera plateau design with a triple 48 megapixel camera setup. So yes, the telephoto is now 48 megapixels on both, and it also has 4x optical zoom that can crop into 8x optical zoom, and this can also digital zoom up to 40x. Now the 17 Pros also get second generation sensor shift OIS along with 3D sensor shift OIS for the new telephoto lens. So basically the Pros are just going to be a lot more stable when you're moving, like when you're moving around, or when you're trying to be steady when you're zooming in and your hand shaking a little bit. That will help a lot with that. And the Air makes even more compromises than the base model iPhone 17 when it comes to the camera, because it's missing a few key features, including macro mode. So there's no macro mode on the Air, there's no spatial photo support, and there's no cinematic mode. So clearly, if you want the best camera, just avoid the iPhone Air. Like, it's still going to be good, don't get me wrong, but if you want all these extra features and the best of the best, don't get the Air. You'll probably just want to go with the Pro, especially because the Pros also get ProRes video, Pro RAW for photos, and new this year, ProRes RAW video, Apple Log 2 support, and Genlock, which is an industry first for smartphones. This is really advanced. Most people are not going to use this, but it's for multi-camera setups. Oh, and also the 17 Pros are the only ones that can shoot video in 4K 120 FPS. The 17 can only do 4K 60. So it also has the studio quality 4 mic array. That is not something you find on the base 17 or on the iPhone Air. Now here's where things get kind of strange, and it has to do with the chipset inside. So the iPhone 17 gets the A19 chip. Meanwhile, the Air and the Pros get the A19 Pro chip. But what's strange is that Apple gave the Air the A19 Pro chip despite it being made with titanium and having no vapor chamber cooling, but Apple also disabled one of the cores inside. So it has one less GPU core than the Pros, and it's the same as the base 17. So it's the same cores as the base 17, but has an A19 Pro chip, not a regular A19 chip. But regardless, both the A19 and A19 Pro chips have neural accelerators, an updated 16-core neural engine, and improved ISP for taking photos. That is the image signal processor. Now the base 17 is the only model with 8 gigabytes of RAM. All the others have 12 gigabytes of RAM. So that actually could be why the iPhone Air got the A19 Pro chip, is so they could get up to that 12 gigs of RAM and not be stuck at 8 like the base model. And if you're somebody who's into transferring files a lot, this is where you'll absolutely want to go with the Pros, because the iPhone Air and the base iPhone 17 still have USB 2 speeds, whereas the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max have USB 3 speeds. Okay, so here's what really throws a wrench into things this year, and that is the color selection. So every year, everybody always knows that the Pros are going to be boring colors. Like every year, that's like clockwork. Everybody knows that we're going to have deep, very subtle colors, but that's not the case this year with the 17 Pro and Pro Max, because we have the all new cosmic orange color along with deep blue and silver. So yes, we only have 3 colors, no black, no white. Very interesting, but at least the cosmic orange really pops for a Pro model. However, the iPhone Air, in my opinion, might just be the most luxurious looking phone of the bunch this year. So it does also come in a few colors. So we have sky blue, light gold, cloud white, and space black. And then the base 17 comes in lavender, sage, mist blue, white, and black. Like I said, I think the iPhone Air looks the best of the bunch, but we'll have to see when they get here in the flesh. Now here's something else that's interesting. So you know how everybody said that the price was going to increase this year? It didn't really happen that way. And I think it's mainly because we got a bump in standard storage. The base storage is now 256 gigs across the board. So the iPhone 17 goes up to 512 gigs, and the Air and Pro go up to 1 terabyte, whereas the Pro Max, the 17 Pro Max, goes up to 2 terabytes. But of course, the base storage for all models is going to be 256 gigs, and the 17 is going to cost $799, so the same price. The Air is going to be $999, 17 Pro $1099, and the 17 Pro Max $1199. So honestly, after saying all this out loud, the base model 17 seems like it might just be the best iPhone base model ever. Like I cannot remember the last time. Maybe the 13 was one, but it's been a long time since we've seen a base model this good. I think so many people have been waiting on 120 hertz ProMotion to come to the base model for so long, because that was the reason, a big reason a lot of people even went with the Pros to begin with when they first started coming out with the Pros, was for that display. But now you can get that with the $800 base model. So realistically, if you want to save money and you don't need the very best tip-top camera system and the tip-top battery life, just get the base iPhone 17. I think it's going to be more than enough for most people. But I think a much harder decision this year is going to be deciding between the Air and the Pro. And it's not even because the Air has similar features to the Pro. Like clearly it's lacking a lot in the camera. It's lacking a lot in performance. It doesn't have the vapor chamber cooling. But I think that the ease of use and when you actually hold the phone in your hands, that's going to be more important than a lot of those other features. And plus, it's only a $100 difference between the two. So clearly the Pro and Pro Max are going to be much better in terms of specs and on paper and everything like that. But the Air is no slouch, and plus it just looks amazing. So I would say that if you're somebody who prioritizes portability, if you really like having a sleek and light phone, you might want to really look into the Air instead of the Pro. I think most people who should get a Pro phone already know that they should get a Pro phone and they're going to get it regardless. So that's how I feel about that. Now, I do also need to say, should you upgrade to the iPhone 17 series from the iPhone 16 series last year? Because honestly, it's a pretty big jump for being year over year. And this might be a hot take, but I would say that if you have a base model iPhone 16 from last year, I think it's actually worth upgrading to the iPhone 17 this year. The base model to base model, especially after you trade in, it's not going to be that big of a difference. You're going to get the 120 hertz ProMotion display. You're going to get much better battery life. You're going to have the much better selfie camera with the dual, camera recording. And of course, you could also have better colors, but that's very, dependent on your style. But I don't think it's crazy is what I'm trying to say to upgrade from the 16 to the 17. I think the more challenging question here is if you have a 16 Pro, should you upgrade to the 17 series? And for that, I'd say probably not for most people. The 16 Pros are going to be more than enough still. You don't really need the 17 or 17 Pros for that, unless you maybe like the Air, you like that thin and light profile. Now, if you have an iPhone 15 series or older, this is where I would say that you probably should look heavily into upgrading to the iPhone 17 series, even if you went from a 15 Pro to a base 17. Now, clearly you're going to miss out on that telephoto lens, so that could be a deal breaker for some people, but the 120 hertz ProMotion display, you're going to have significantly better performance, significantly better battery life, significantly better front-facing camera. There's going to be a lot of big improvements from the 15 series to the 17 series, especially if you don't have a 15 Pro. If you have a base 15 or anything previously where you didn't have Apple Intelligence, that's another reason to look at upgrading to the 17 series, is because of Apple Intelligence, along with the camera control and the action button. But if you have any specific questions about if if you should upgrade or not, leave those down in a comment down below. And of course, other people here on the channel will help you out, and I will try to chime in with my opinion as well. But I hope this video helped you out. I hope it helped break down all of the new iPhones that were announced this year and which one you should choose. So let me know down in the comment as well, which iPhone are you going to pick up this year? My big hot take this year, my big, prediction is that the iPhone Air is going to be the most underrated model. So I don't think it's going to be the best, but I think it's going to be very underrated, and a lot of people are going to love it. But we'll see. I could be completely wrong, and I could be eating my words. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can see if I regret saying that or not. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Check out TORRAS down in the description below, and I will see you guys very soon.